Is Jackie with us? Jackie?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
Can't see her.
Oh, we've still got the stamp.
Richard, I can confirm the live feed started.
We're live, Chairman, so over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this, the fourth online meeting of the Planning Committee on Thursday, the 20th of August. I am the Chairman, Councillor Cyril Liddy. This meeting is being broadcast live via Zoom over the internet on the Council's YouTube channel and will also be available to watch afterwards. To begin the meeting, there are a few matters of housekeeping. With the exception of the Democratic Services officers advising us, would all participants please mute their microphones unless invited to speak. At the start of the meeting, I will announce by name and invite to speak those participants wishing to make representations to committee members in the order of the business to be conducted. I will ask for the application to be presented by the planning case officer, during which time a visual presentation will be shared. I will then ask members of the committee in turn if they wish to ask a question or make a comment. At the end of each item of business, the Democratic Services Officer will ask each committee member in turn to confirm audibly how they wish to vote, and the outcome of each vote will be confirmed by the Democratic Services Officer. Subject to the progress of the meeting, I may adjourn the meeting at 8 p.m. for a short break. Now, this is a quasi-judicial committee which makes decisions based on material planning considerations following the laws of the land and the policies of the council. If the committee is minded to refuse an application, members will use such considerations and evidence that will stand up in a court of law. The material planning considerations are listed in the committee's agenda. Now, I will ask each of the committee members in turn to confirm that they understand the procedures and they're here. Councillor Barton, please.
Yep, Councillor Lynn Barton, Shrub End Ward, understood, thank you.
Councillor Chua, please.
Understood, Chairman. Councillor Helen Chua, St. Anne's and St. John's Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Hazel, please.
Councillor Pauline Hazel, Shrub End Ward, and understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis, please.
Understood. Councillor Brian Jarvis, Lexton and Braithwaite Ward.
Councillor Loveland, please.
Derek Loveland, Councillor of Tiptree, understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McLean, please. Councillor McLean.
Can't see her, Chair. We seem to have lost her.
Not signed in, I don't think.
It was here a while ago.
She had signed in. She's obviously lost contact, I think.
Owen, could you try and get hold of Jackie for us, please?
Yes, Richard, I'll give her a call now.
I've unlocked the meeting, Owen. So.
Sorry? What was
I was just saying to Owen, I've unlocked the meeting, so she'll be able to get back in.
Okay. Do you mind if I continue with the formal bits?
I think that's fine, Chairman.
Yeah. Councillor Oxford, please.
Councillor Philip Oxford, Highwards Ward, and understood, Chair.
Councillor Pearson, please.
Chris Pearson, Berechurch Ward Councillor, and completely understand, Chair.
Thank you. Substitutes. Are there any substitutes this evening?
I'm substituting for Councillor Warnes, Chair.
Thank you. There are no urgent items scheduled for this meeting. Are there any declarations of interest in the business to be conducted tonight? Disclosable pecuniary, other pecuniary, non-pecuniary? I take no response.
Councillor McLean has returned, Chair.
Councillor McLean, can you hear me? Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can?
Yes.
And you understand the procedure?
Yes, same as usual.
Good. And you don't have any
No interest.
declarable interest. Good.
No.
Okay, fine. Okay. Okay, there is only one item on the agenda tonight, so I will announce the speakers by name. Presenting officer will be Simon Cairns. The public, hang on, let me get this right actually. Mrs. Stuttle, you're speaking against the application, are you not?
Not exactly against the application, but parts of it.
Okay, yeah, I do apologise. Yes, it's my notes. I got them wrong. We don't appear then to have a speaker for it, not the applicant.
That's right, Chairman. We have no speaker for the application. The applicant has not registered to make any submissions of the meeting tonight.
Okay, and we have no visiting councillors either.
That's right, Chairman. No visiting councillors.
Okay. All right. Well, Mrs. Stuttle, if you'd care to have your say and address the meeting, you have 3 minutes, and you'll be warned after 2 to start to wrap up, please.
Okay. Right. Good evening. We have previously commented on this site on 3 occasions, and none of our fears appear to have been addressed. The new site plan only raises more questions. We would like to put it on public record our real concerns regarding road safety. All 3 sites of the whole development should be considered as one entity. When this and the other 2 adjoining sites are constructed, if the infrastructure is not reconsidered and the whole development of approximately 213 dwellings are discharged onto an already congested and dangerous part of Berechurch Hall Road, this will impact both on the existing and new residents, motorists and pedestrians. On the new site plan, we have noted that the ditch that runs on the south side of Berechurch Hall Road has been removed and now appears as a footway cycleway. Who authorised this, and what is to happen to the ditch? Who actually owns the ditch? Your tree and hedgerow protection states all existing trees and hedgerows should be retained throughout the development construction phase. So why in February 2020 did the planning office allow the hedgerow to be removed along the ditch and the oak trees to be butchered despite me informing them of it as it was happening? Will this hedgerow now be replanted to comply with the report and then be monitored for a further 5 years? Will the hedgerow on the adjoining 164 dwelling site be protected so the same does not occur in the future? The proposed temporary site entrance will impact greatly on the houses opposite on Berechurch Hall Road. This will be worsened if the permanent site entrance to the adjoining 164 dwelling site is allowed to go ahead, as it will be directly opposite a Muse entrance. At times, it is extremely dangerous to pull out onto Berechurch Hall Road due to the volume of traffic and the number of speeding motorists that have no intent of giving way. Crossing the road as a pedestrian is a complete lottery, even in lockdown. We would implore you to consider further traffic calming measures to ensure the safety of new and existing residents.
2 minutes, Chair.
Entrance to the relocated further towards Maple Green in an area not opposite existing dwellings entrance and with a provision of a roundabout. 2, that the drop curb shown on the site plan of the footway cycleway to St Michael's School, is this a pedestrian crossing and has it been shown in the best location? 3, that the impact of all 3 sites and the high volume of traffic that will be generated will be given due consideration today. Your emerging local plan has the modified plan been finalised as the inspector suggested in July 2020? What local road improvements are proposed for Berechurch Hall Road by the Essex County Council Highways? And what services and facilities are referred to that will be accessed by foot from this location? What public transport? We have none. We implore you to keep us safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Stuttle. Would you be good enough now to leave the meeting and you could have a look at it and watch it progress on the council's YouTube website?
That's fine. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Simon, would you be good enough to present the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members and members of the public.
This evening we're here to consider application 191093, a full application for 32 dwellings on land to the south of Berechurch Hall Road. I have a short presentation, after which I'll be obviously happy to respond to either the material issues raised by Mrs. Stuttle and obviously your questions. In addition, we have Martin Mason from ECC Highways with us this evening, who can further respond to any specific questions pertaining to highway safety matters. So I will now share screen and go into the presentation. So again, this is a full application for 32 detached and semi-detached dwellings and flats, complete with garaging, new site access and public open space. So here we have the proposed layout, which is a product of significant negotiation. As you can see, the access is on the eastern side of the site frontage to Berechurch Hall Road. There is a main access road which meanders through the L-shaped site with an area of public open space at the heart of the site. As you can see from this plan, there are 9 number affordable units sited at the western corner of the site, and we'll be looking at these in greater detail in a moment. The site has a very significant number of single-storey dwellings to mitigate the impact with the existing dwellings to the immediate west of the site in Catkin Mews and Amber Court, which is a sheltered housing scheme in courtyard form immediately to the west of Catkin Mews. For those of you who know Berechurch Hall Road, Catkin Mews is adjoined by a small employment site, mainly occupied by a business selling swimming pools and hot tubs. But to the south of that site, as you can see, is the L-shaped application site, which has been designed to provide access to the remainder of the site allocation. Site allocation is in the emerging local plan policy SC1 and provides for 150 dwellings in total, of which this is only 32. To the immediate west of this application site, you'll see the main spine road provides direct access to a further parcel of land to the west, and to the east provides direct access to the main part of the allocation to the south of Berechurch Hall Road. The proposal includes a temporary access onto Berechurch Hall Road. As you can see, that's indicated by the red arrow. That would be stopped up should the remainder and when the remainder of the allocation is brought forward for your consideration in due course. In terms of the policy context, the scheme is fully compliant with our adopting affordable housing policies insofar as there are 9 affordable units proposed. They are indicated with a red dot in this part of the site at the western corner. They consist of a combination of a pair of semi-detached 2-storey dwellings, a small block of 2-storey flats, together with chalet bungalows, which are single-storey with some accommodation in their roof space, served on the northern side facing the existing dwellings by roof lights, which only serve non-habitable rooms. In terms of the remainder of the site, as you can see, there are a number of buildings with blue dots on there. They are all bungalows, a variety of forms, including at the elbow of the layout. In that corner, you can see there is an articulated pair of bungalows. The units with yellow dots are 2.5 and 2-storey dwellings, which address the proposed public open space, which would follow in the subsequent phase of the development, which is not before us for consideration this evening. However, they have been laid out in anticipation of such a further phase, and they would create an appropriate edge to this development. Were the further phases not to be brought forward, we would still be left with a perfectly sound and well-planned layout. So moving on to the next drawing. As you can see, again, the orange units are the dwelling houses, which are 2 and 2.5 story. The bungalows are shown in pink, and the affordable units in that sort of pink raspberry colour at the western corner of the site. As you can see, the proposed site accesses are indicated. And in addition, you'll see a blue line immediately outside the red line site area to the south. And that is a proposed outer orbital, which would provide a pedestrian access along the southern edge of the built form of this part of Colchester, leading between Gosbecks to the west and Maypole Green Road to the east. As you can see, the detail of the proposed access to the next phase of the site is shown with some gate piers, which would provide a degree of formality. So moving on, Chairman, this further plan shows the disposition of green space within the development. All of the units are fully compliant with our open space and amenity space policies. Some, in fact, considerably exceed those policy standards. A couple are slightly below, but the average is well in excess of our policy standard. In addition, Chair, this further drawing shows the layout of car parking. Blue units, the blue rectangles show the allocated parking for the affordable units. The pinky red show the private units, and the yellow show the visitor spaces, all of which are fully policy compliant. The issue of disabled parking was raised, Chair, previously. There is one fully wheelchair accessible unit within the flatted element of the development at the western end, and that unit could be provided with its own dedicated disabled parking via condition should members consider that appropriate. That could be added to the schedule of conditions. Moving along, Chair, the light sort of aquamarine colour is the main area of public open space at the heart of the site. As you can see, this would provide an attractive green, almost mini green part to the development. And in addition, there are peripheral areas of further open space shown in indigo on the site perimeters to the north and the east and the western edges of the site. The site is currently enclosed by hedgerows of variable quality with standard oak trees within. The most impressive trees are along the southern boundary of the site, with some lesser oak trees which are mainly grown out hedgerow trees on the northern site boundary, which were referred to by the speaker earlier this evening. In terms of the house types, they're very traditional in character. As you can see, this is the proposed flatted unit. These are all affordable, which is a very domestic scaled and character block. There is one fully wheelchair accessible unit proposed within this block of affordable units. In addition, this is the proposed pair of semi-detached affordable housing units. It's very simple in character, but relieved by potentially robust detailing, including sills and lintels, door canopies, and a traditional hipped pyramidal roof plan, and very traditional cottage casement windows. The unit in front of you is one of the affordable house types. It's one of the chalet bungalows, which is relieved by forward projecting gable and dormer window, whereas to the rear, where with the interface with existing properties, as you can see, there are only roof lights which would mitigate any potential overlooking issues. This is one of the proposed bungalow open market house types. As you can see, they're articulated pairs of symmetrical arts and crafts inspired bungalows with timbered gables, traditional open porches, and hipped and gabled roof forms, giving some visual interest, and chimneys. And again, this is one of the affordable house types. This is a chalet bungalow. There is one detached chalet bungalow within the affordable, the 9 affordable units. And again, a further house type showing one of the articulated pairs of open market bungalows. And a further bungalow house type showing the range of interest which would be provided architecturally through the use of combination pyramidal roof types, timbered gables, and traditionally detailed windows with multi-paned frieze lights, so all looking very arts and craftsy and traditional in character. This is one of the proposed articulated pairs that would turn the corner of the site adjoining the development to the north. As you can see, it manages to create interest with the articulation of the pair, the use again of a variety of ridge heights, and in this case again half-timbered gables and bay windows on the front elevation. The rear is simpler, but would afford no overlooking potential to the neighbouring dwellings to the rear. And again, a further bungalow house type, this time again with ridged roofs, with incorporating half-timbered gables, chimneys, and bay windows, all again very traditional in scale and character. And this is one of the 2.5-storey units with accommodation in the roof space. They were shown yellow on the site layout plan, if you can remember. They are on the western side, or the eastern side of the site layout, addressing the next phase of the development if it comes forward. They are intended to provide a significant scale at the entrance to the site, which would then be mainly consist of bungalows in terms of the overall mix of house types, which is quite unusual within a contemporary scheme. We tend not to get many schemes incorporating many bungalows coming forward, and it is a house type which probably does meet a considerable unmet local need. And again, a further 2.5-storey house type with accommodation in the roof, this time served by dormer windows, with the main entrance, rather than it being gable entry, it is on the long elevation. Again, using the same architectural language, with 2-storey square bays in this instance. The windows again having multi-paned frieze lights and flat-roofed lead-dressed dormers. So it would be quite a traditional sort of Edwardian inspired house type. And again, a further 2.5-storey house type with a subordinate wing incorporating integral garaging, much in the same architectural idiom as the previous foregoing 2-2.5-storey house types. And again, a gable entry, similar house type, providing 2.5-storey accommodation, but this time with the entrance from the gable end, with fenestration on the long end elevation, including flat roof dormers again. And on the rear elevation, a single roof light servicing the shared hallway areas to the roof level bedrooms. Here is one of the proposed carports, showing a typical pyramidal roof plan and a fairly simple garaging format. Here, Chair, we have the view looking along Berechurch Hall Road in a westerly direction towards Gosbecks, showing the mature oak trees on the site frontage referred to by the speaker. Camalodunum Drive is immediately on the right-hand side of the road, heading into the distance there. And the cream rendered property you can see is the two-storey dwelling at the entrance to Catkin Mews, and one of the units referred to in terms of the relationship, ensuring an adequate relationship with the existing dwellings abutting the site. Again, a view this time in the opposite direction, along eastwards along Berechurch Hall Road, showing the hedgerow leading on the southern side of the site, that is on the right-hand side of the image. On the left-hand side of the image are the existing dwellings that face Berechurch Hall Road, which are extremely mixed in character. I think they mainly date from the 1980s. As you can see, it is undeniably a busy road. We have Martin Mason to give some further information regarding highway safety. We've circulated the accident history for this section of road the last 5 years. There is no highway objection to this scheme, which I'm sure will form part of members' deliberations this evening. As you can see, the roadway is lit. It is a 30 miles per hour speed limit, and it is very straight and affords good visibility in either direction, east and west, from the proposed vehicular access point. Here again is the rear of the existing dwelling at the entrance to Catkin Mews, and some of the bungalows which are in Catkin Mews and back on to the western side of the application site. And again, further views of the bungalows in Catkin Mews, and explaining the need for us to very carefully manage that relationship and that design response as being shown in the layout, where there are a considerable number of single-storey dwellings which would abut these existing development, avoiding overlooking. And here we have a view north from within the application site to the dwellings on the north side of Berechurch Hall Road, showing the grown out oak trees which have been crown lifted as referred to by the speaker earlier this evening. As you can see, they are former oak trees from which would have formed part of a hedgerow and have since grown out. The understory has been coppiced and would need to form part of a planting scheme, obviously avoiding interference with site visibility at the temporary access point. And this is a view from within the site, from the southeast corner, looking towards the existing development at Catkin's Mews. In addition, you can see that sort of space age shed-like structure. That's part of the commercial part of the site, which sells swimming pools and hot tubs, and immediately adjoining it to the right are the properties in Catkin's Mews, which do have small rear gardens, and hence why the proposal incorporates so many bungalows and avoids any potential overlooking of their rear private garden areas. And this is a view to the northwest, showing, I think it's Amber Court, which is a sheltered housing scheme with a very interesting roofscape in clay tiles. As you can see, it has a 2-meter close boarded fence surrounding it. And again, this would be abutted by a single-storey and chalet bungalow dwellings with any accommodation on the north, any fenestration serving accommodation with the roof on the north side, provided solely by roof lights, avoiding overlooking of these of this existing residential scheme. To the south of that, as you can see on the western side boundary, are some mature oak trees, and some redundant derelict sheds within the application site, which are all rather overgrown in the background of this image. And this is the heart of the site, showing the mature oak trees on the southern site boundary. This indicates where there would be a proposed outer Colchester orbital footway, which is emerging as a proposal to provide a pedestrian means of east-west access along the southern side of this part of Colchester. And there would be direct access point from the development into that footway, which is in the ownership of the owner who owns the remainder of the allocation. As you can see, it's fairly unremarkable overgrown farmland. There is ecological interest, which is covered within the report. There are inactive badger sets, but provision has been made for further monitoring of that aspect, and the relocation of reptiles from within the site has already taken place to a more appropriate location where they will no longer be disturbed. So, Chair, that is the presentation, and I'm happy to take whatever questions members may wish to raise. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. I'll now invite each of the committee members in turn if they wish to ask a question or make a comment. Starting with Councillor Barton, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, I can't deny that it's a nicely laid out development, and it's really pleasing to see 9 affordable houses. It is nicely laid out, and I'm also pleased to see that the developers have taken on board Catkin Mews residents' worries about living in bungalows and being overlooked, and that's now been changed to bungalows, so their back gardens aren't overlooked. They're all positives. And the other thing which the lady mentioned in her speech about the ditch, we've always had concerns about that stretch to the left if you're facing Catkin Mews going to the development, that we've always wanted a continuation of that path, and we've never been able to achieve it. But it is a ditch, and I think it would be useful if you could explain what happens with the ditch in this instance now that we're having a pathway over it, but that is a positive. The problem I have really, as I think most of you know, from my own experience, is traffic management on that road, along that stretch. I did request the accident data for the last 5 years, stretching from the Layer Road right down to Berechurch Road, that section where this development, if it happens, will take place. And I've looked at the data, and we've got 14 reported accidents and 26 casualties within that 5-year period. Now, I've looked back further than that as well, and there's a cluster of accidents that have happened over the years at the junction of Camulo Doonham and at the junction of Maypole Green Road. Now, I've delivered down there, as I'm sure Councillor Hazel has, and it is very, very difficult to cross the road. Cars do speed down there, managed to obtain a vehicle activated sign for the other side, but we haven't got one for the Layer Road end. So if this should go ahead, that might be a consideration that we do install a vehicle activated sign to encourage people to slow down. The other thing, there's no sign of any pedestrian crossings, and I'm looking, especially if the next phases come forward, you're going to have a lot of school children. All the schools are the other side of that busy road. You've got St Michael's, which has nearly doubled in size actually over the last few years. You've got Montgomery. Now, how are those pupils safely going to cross that road? I just find it really difficult to support anything until significant safety measures have been put in place to secure people's safety, basically. And I know, and it's a pity the committee couldn't visit really, because it is very, very difficult to cross that road. So those are all my highways issues. And the other thing I noticed, it does say bus stop provision is included, but at the moment there isn't a bus service along that road. But I was thinking about that, unless you have a bus lay-by, should that happen and the bus service emerges, that's going to cause chaos. If you haven't got a bus lay-by, it will just hold up all the traffic and it just won't work. It'll be chaos. So, and have you got a bus company yet that have agreed to run the service? So at the moment, they're my thoughts. They're the things I'm really concerned about. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Chua, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to put in as a condition that there will be at least one disabled parking space? And with regard to the electrical charging points, how many will be installed? That's all I have at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hazel, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have to echo everything that Councillor Barton has said. It's a pity the photographs of the traffic on Berechurch Hall Road weren't taken at a time when, quite frankly, it is a nightmare. As she has said, we both deliver down that road, and trying to cross it is extremely hazardous. And that is my problems. There's going to be children in those houses, and you know, they're going to need to cross that road. And it seems to me unclear what is going to be provided. I mean, it talks of pathways but on both sides of the road, cycle and footpath, and yet this isn't going to happen until the rest of the development is in place. And it really is a huge concern, and I'm with Councillor Barton on this, that until we get something sensible, I don't think.
Have you finished, Councillor Hazel?
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
Sorry, cut off there. All right. Simon, would you care to answer those, and referring obviously to Martin as well as necessary?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, with regard to the issue of the ditch on the site frontage to Berechurch Hall Road, that ditch would be culverted, that is, put through a tube to maintain its existing drainage capacity. So that ditch would remain extant and continuous with the footway built over it. So there would be no interruption of the drainage that provides to surface water. So that would be maintained. With regards to the footway on the frontage, that is a requirement of this scheme. In terms of its continuity, obviously that would be sought as part of any ongoing development on land to the west. But the problem is, at the moment, it really wouldn't go anywhere. So it is what it is, and it includes the whole of the application site frontage. In terms of the issue of traffic calming, the emerging allocation policy SC1 does actually include within it the issue of road improvements. And I'll obviously refer further to Martin Mason from ECC Highways on that point. But I do think that it is a point which would be delivered as part of the substantive development of the remainder of the site. As members may be aware, this is a very small section of a much larger site, and the significant traffic calming potential would really, I believe, be delivered by the remainder of the allocation. The total allocation is for 150 units in the emerging local plan. This scheme is for 32. There is a further part of the site to the west, which was shown on the layout plan. Whether or not that ever comes forward is questionable, but in any event, the remainder of the site offers ample potential for traffic calming measures to deliver a mitigation strategy for the concerns raised by members. In terms of the bus stop, that is a requirement, but the county council are no longer provide obviously bus services, and it would be reliant on the private providers coming forward to operate such a service in due course. With regard to the provision of a bus lay-by, I would have thought that was again a question which would be better designed into the remainder of the site with its long road frontage to the south side of Berechurch Hall Road. The matter raised by Councillor Chua in terms of the disabled parking space, I suggest we modify the existing car parking condition within the schedule to include provision for one of those spaces to be fully disabled compliant. And that is perfectly achievable. With regard to the electrical charging points, as you'll see within the schedule, there is a condition which requires a scheme. If members feel strongly, we could impose a further informative setting out members' aspirations for the level of provision that would result from such a scheme in terms of the provision of EVC points. Councillor Hazel raised the point around road hazards and crossings. Obviously, the schools are on the north side of Berechurch Hall Road, or access via Berechurch Hall Road. There is no crossing way proposed as part of this relatively modest development, but I would imagine that there is significant potential for a crossing point associated with the majority of the allocation which is yet to be submitted. And I will defer to Martin Mason on that point. I think that probably covers the points raised by members, and if you're happy, Chair, I'll invite Mr. Mason to give us his views with regard to highway safety matters and crossing matters and potential for traffic calming measures. Thank you.
Martin, please.
Good evening, members. Thank you, Simon. I've made a note of a few points that have been raised, so I will obviously go through those now, and hopefully I can be of assistance to you. So, but please come back if I've missed something or there's something else you'd like to discuss. In terms of the proposed footway cycleway across the frontage of the site in Berechurch Hall Road, that would require, as Simon mentioned, the ditch to be piped. But that is something obviously that's been achieved elsewhere in the county and would have to follow all the usual procedures in terms of the necessary consents from us and whoever manages the ditch. So I don't see that being an issue. It's just having to go through the usual procedures to get consent for that. I think Councillor Barton mentioned the possibility of a VAS sign in Berechurch Hall Road. I think that is something that we would need to consider further before it was taken any further. We have to be careful in terms of the use of them. If they're too prolific, we find that motorists tend to just ignore them and just see them as another item of street furniture and don't give them a huge amount of attention and have a huge impact on speed. So we have to be very careful about where we use them to make sure they really have an impact on speed. In terms of a crossing for Berechurch Hall Road, I think Simon obviously has already talked around the fact that this is a small part of a large allocation. And obviously we're only here today to consider the 32 units. The pedestrian footway across the front of the site is appropriate for that number of units. And I think the idea being, as Simon alluded to, is that when the larger part of the allocation comes forward, then that's the opportunity to look at extending the cycleway to the north and looking at potentially additional in Berechurch Hall Road. My hunch would be that that would be something along the lines of having a central refuge island to help pedestrians get across the road. I think members need to remember that Berechurch Hall Road is busy for a reason. Its primary function is traffic. It carries a lot of traffic. It's a very important link in the network. Excuse me, it provides a lot of relief for South Colchester. Okay, parts of it probably weren't designed for that many years ago, but this particular stretch has been widened over the years and does carry quite a lot of traffic efficiently and safely. But yes, there's likely to be an opportunity on the back of the bigger part of the allocation to look at potentially putting in a central refuge for what would be a lot more pedestrians wanting to cross the road. And lastly on my list, I think there's mention of providing a bus lay-by. And I understand Councillor Barton's concerns around what impact that might have if it wasn't provided on traffic flows in Berechurch Hall Road. The county's policy is actually not to provide lay-bys as a sort of generic policy. But having said that, obviously it's each case on its own merits, each location is different, and we have to consider each location on that basis. The worry with lay-bys is that we get a lot of complaints from the passenger transport providers, from their drivers, that they, once they're in the lay-by, if it's a busy road, they then really struggle to get back into the flow of the traffic. And obviously we are meant to be doing all we can in terms of current thinking and policy around encouraging the use of public transport. And I won't teach you to suck eggs on that front, but that's where we're coming from. So we only go down that route if we feel we've got no choice. Now, Berechurch Road, it may be that the balance is that it is just so busy that we have to go for a lay-by of some kind. It may not be a full lay-by, it may be a half lay-by. That's often a compromise in that it gives the bus more of a chance to get back into the flow, but still allows vehicles to get past the bus while it's waiting for people to get on and off. As I say, hopefully that helps, but I'm here to help if you've got any more questions or require further clarification.
Thank you, Martin. Councillor Jarvis, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I have to say the development does look to be well thought out. I think consideration has been given to existing adjoining premises. I do welcome the introduction or the inclusion of bungalows. That's a rare sight. I also welcome very much the affordable housing. And I would like to sort of say thank you to the officers negotiating this, because I think originally there may have been some doubt whether these would be provided. So it's very pleasing to see that included. I think that the concerns regarding the traffic are very valid indeed, because it is a busy road. There seems to be a weakness here in the sense of the planning, because of the having to judge something on the individual applications, and where we're looking at 32 houses, there may be another 150 coming along. Where if you just only consider those that are in front of you at the moment, you could get another 32, and that wouldn't justify changing existing traffic controls, etc. I think it has to be somehow looked as a whole. When this whole site development is going to take place, this is what's going to be needed.
I didn't catch that. Could you try again?
Hello, hello, hello. Are you still with me, Chair?
Yes. You seem to have...
I don't have an answer for that. Else I can help with.
Is that Alexa?
Who this new member of the committee is, but...
Here's what I found.
Anyway, have you...
I'm not sure what that is, Chairman. Has anybody got that broadcasting in their house?
No.
Or...
Yes. Not in my house, but I can hear it.
Just hold on. Lorraine, you're not on the computer, are you? No. No. Nobody in the house.
Okay.
Someone has a
proceed, Chairman.
Piece of equipment.
Thank you. Have you completed your questions?
Well, as I say, just to round that off, I do feel that there's some sort of weakness there, because we're expecting more applications on this particular site, and then we're going to have to face it. But if they're put up in small parcels each time, we are limited to what view we can take on the application in front of us. So that is my concern, because Berechurch Road is very busy, as people have expressed, and I think we must be looking in more longer term than what we're seeing just in front of us at the present time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Loveland, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think a lot of the points have been covered by, Councillor Barton, Jarvis, Hazel. I think the road is the main thing about this whole system, and it is a very busy road. I've used it millions of times myself. Right, it's like a circular road out around Colchester. I think the road is the only thing that we can say against it. Other than that, I think we've got to go through with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McLean, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points. I did do a site visit and it was really informative. And I could just see when people are going to be pulling out, dare I say it, in a vehicle from the site, if it's built out, will the site splays be cut back a bit so that they can see to pull out? Because that would be a huge safety factor to help the situation. The other item is, does it clash with the driveway opposite the new driveway out? Because that would obviously always cause a bit of confusion, because it'll be who dares wins, who's going to pull out first and go which direction. So, I mean, I'm not sure if it's directly opposite an entrance or not, both entrances. The other item is the walkway. Will it be fit for cycles as well? I mean, as we're doing this big cycleway around the whole of the district, will it be incorporating that to take it straight through to Lair and those sort of areas and around Colchester? So it's just a couple of points there.
Thank you. I think actually most of those questions relate to highways, but if Simon would care to address Councillor Jarvis's point about the holistic nature of this development, the parcelling up, that would be handy before we hand over to Martin, please.
Well, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think this situation has largely arisen due to patterns of land ownership. This particular site is in a separate ownership to the remainder of the site, and consequently has been brought forward by this developer. The remainder of the site, we understand, has Persimmon Homes interest, and they will bring it forward as one parcel, undoubtedly. So I don't think there is a need for a concern that there will be an incrementalism here that will avoid the delivery of the requisite highway mitigation. I think it's fair to say that the next scheme will be for the substantive part of the site to deliver the remainder of the 150 units in one dollop. So I think whilst I totally understand the concerns around incrementalism and the fact that this is a small site and therefore cannot proportionately be required to deliver substantive improvements, I think the remainder will come forward as one lot and will have the potential to deliver the genuine significant mitigation you're looking for. But I'll hand over to Martin with regard to the other points in relation to possible conflict with the driveway opposite, etc. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Simon. Martin, please.
Chairman, and thank you, Simon. To answer Councillor McLean's specific questions, the visibility is achievable with to required standards within land they control or is highway. Obviously, Simon mentioned earlier that Berechurch Road is quite straight in its location, so they are able to provide visibility to the required standards. I don't think there's a drive immediately opposite, but obviously, if there were, it's not an unusual set of circumstances. We wouldn't be overly concerned about that. What we would be more concerned about is if there was another access, another priority junction directly opposite, then that would be something we'd be unhappy about. But if there is just a private drive, then that's normally okay.
Thank you.
And the cycleway?
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Footpath?
Yeah, the link across the front of the site will be a shared footway cycleway, yes.
No, the one going down the back of the site, the footpath. There's one going down the side of the site.
I'll hand you over to Simon. That's not a highway requirement.
Please.
Yep. In terms of the outer orbital, that is an aspiration at the present time. That isn't the existing green orbital. It is a further outer orbital that we're looking to deliver. The exact nature of that as yet has to be firmed up, but that whole of the area to the south is in the one ownership, and certainly a link through this from this site to that is deliverable, and I would imagine that it will be required to be a 3 metre wide cycleway footway going forward, but we don't have anything before us at the present time. It is very much an aspiration and something which is potentially deliverable.
Thank you. Councillor Oxford, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Everything has been said that I wanted to say, so I'll just leave it short and sweet.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased that Councillor McLean raised the cycleway issue. I think that's been answered. I'm also very pleased to see the number of affordable houses. I think there is something in the documentation about the electronic charging points, which is quite helpful. I think there's a suggestion somewhere in there about 1 per unit plus additional for each of the flats or the affordable homes. So that's good to see. I was just a little bit concerned when I was reading about the archaeology, because I know on that side of town we've been particularly poor at times in protecting archaeological sites. So I'd be keen just to ensure that that does happen, although I know it's referred to in the report. Mr. Mason referred to that road having been widened over the years. I would ask where, because in the 30 years I've been driving up and down that road frequently, I can't recall it being widened anywhere between Layer Road and Berechurch Road. And it's never been particularly well maintained. So I think that's something that I would very much welcome Essex County Council having a look at. I know Mrs. Stuttle mentioned hedgerow removal, and also I think you responded to her query about the oak trees having been butchered, but I just wanted to clarify that. I too shared Councillor Jarvis's concerns about the incrementalism, and was wondering whether or not there wasn't any way in which we could put, at the very least, an informative in this. But I take what Mr. Cairns is saying in terms of ownership of this parcel of land versus potential ownership of the main parcel of land. But I think it would be useful for the committee just to put on record this evening its concerns about traffic calming and measures to facilitate traffic at highways crossing once the majority of the development is before this planning committee in the future. I think that was all I wanted to say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. I think for my part, I quite like the development. It seems to me to be quite sort of stylish in architectural terms. I think I share everyone else's concerns about the slightly piecemeal nature of this development. Having said that, as has been pointed out, it is a matter of individual land ownership. But I do take on board, and I think everyone on this committee takes on board, the concerns of the residents about road safety. The Berechurch Hall Road is not exactly a well-loved road, even if it is a well-used road. And I think the concerns of the residents are understandable. Probably a slightly random thought did occur to me, actually. The application involves a temporary access to the site. And if the site is going to be linked to a larger site later, is there perhaps scope for a in-out access from the site using both entrances, or using one as an entrance and one as an exit? Now, I appreciate that Persimmon may actually already planned this, their plans maybe were fairly well developed, and it is irrelevant for this particular development, but I do throw that in as a thought. I share Councillor Pearson's concern about the archaeology. I don't know if anything's actually been found there at all, and obviously the trees as well. So I don't know if you could wrap those points up, Simon, please.
Certainly, Chair, pleased to help. In terms of the archaeology, a trial trenched site evaluation has already been undertaken. I don't think it can have found anything very exciting, but in addition, there is a condition to be imposed. Dr. Tipper is quite happy with that as an approach to this site, although it is obviously on the precious south side of the town in terms of archaeology. It doesn't seem to have turned up anything that I'm aware of that's particularly exciting. And they have undertaken the trial trenched evaluation that they've been requested to do. In terms of the hedgerow, it has been removed. It was very heavily overgrown, as you will see from the remainder of the hedgerow to the east. If it were to be left, that's been coppiced and it would simply regrow. But there's obviously considerations of the visibility splay and any new planting would be covered by the landscaping condition, which is included within the schedule in any event. In terms of the incrementalism argument, if members were so minded, we could put an informative on this one stating that, you know, as general information, members are concerned about traffic speeds on Berechurch Hall Road, and it is their expectation that significant traffic calming measures will be included in future phases associated with this allocation. With regard to the in-out arrangement, I would defer to Martin, but I think it's potentially problematic. This scheme has been designed with the intention that the vehicular access would be stopped up and a single point of access would be created to minimize the risk, I think, of having multiple access points onto Berechurch Hall Road and having it all in one place. But I'll defer to Martin, if I may, for him to comment on that potential issue, because it's beyond the scope of my expertise. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Martin, if you care to comment.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Simon. We find with in and out, if you like, no entry and exit, they are continually abused by motorists, and the problem is that they require a traffic regulation order, and we find that the police will object to the order because they cannot resource enforcing it, because that's often what's needed, because it's not unusual for people just to nip through. There's nobody about, just nip through. So we find that unfortunately they're abused all the time. But I can understand where you're going with that and you're thinking, but we try and avoid one-way streets and one-way systems wherever we can in residential areas, because they're just not policed and they get abused all the time. In terms of Councillor Pearson's comment regarding Berechurch Hall Road, it was widened many years ago between Layer Road and almost to Berechurch Road. I think the carriageway is about 7.3 metres wide over that stretch, but I appreciate you're absolutely right. It was a long time ago.
Thank you, Martin. Does anybody have any supplementary questions at all? Any more?
Yes, please, Chair.
Councillor Hazel, please.
I'm really rather disappointed what I've heard, particularly regarding highways, because we go on all the time about infrastructure should be in place either first or at the same time. And Mr. Mason's comments about Berechurch Hall Road being for traffic, times are changing. If we are allowing all these houses to be built along Berechurch Hall Road, we must allow proper safety measures for all those people. It will change anyway. Whatever entrances there are, you're going to get an awful lot more traffic coming out onto that road. And as for no bus lay-by, well, you're going to have buses possibly stopping, and that will stop the traffic because it will be sort of backed up behind it, waiting for the bus to, you know, get its passengers on and off. The other point I'm wondering about, at the moment, they're saying there's going to be no footpath in front of these new dwellings. So is it so that the only exit there or going into the site is just going to be by car? Because from my memory, the site butts up to Catkin Close and there is no footpath there at that point. So how are people, even the 32 families who are going to live in those properties, what do they do? How do they get out onto that road other than by car? Thank you. I'd like some answers to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hazel. Does anybody else have any further questions at all?
Yeah. Chairman, Councillor Pearson has his hand raised.
Yeah, my hand raised. Yeah, it was just to pick up on Mr. Cairns' point and to propose an informative along the lines that he was suggesting, please.
Thank you. Simon, would you care to reply, and then Martin, perhaps?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I will be brief. With regard to the issue raised by Councillor Hazel in relation to highways infrastructure provision, Councillor Hazel is quite right, but it obviously has to be proportionate infrastructure. And in this case, we are only dealing with 32 dwellings. The proposal does include a footway cycleway across the site frontage. To clarify that point for Councillor Hazel, there would be full pedestrian access across this frontage of the site, and in due course extended across the remainder of the site. So there would be the potential to for residents to leave the site, walk along and then cross over to the north side of the road, where there obviously is a continuous cycle footpath east-west, and obviously providing access to Camelodunum Drive and to the schools thereafter. So that should be a proportionate amount of infrastructure. And with regard to the informative point Councillor Pearson raised, that would obviously give a heads up to further developers that we mean business and will be requiring an appropriate provision, a proportionate provision of calming for the remainder of the road as part of future development. But I'll then defer to Martin, if I may.
Thank you. Martin, please.
Thank you, Chair. So, thank you, Simon. To be honest with you, I've got no further comments to make.
Thank you. Do any of the committee members have any further comments or questions, observations?
Yes, please.
Actually, I tell you what, I'll ask Councillor Barton first, because you've just asked one, Councillor Hayes. Please, Councillor Barton.
Thank you. Well, it's really that there's the dilemma, because I can't, in all honesty, support this until significant safety measures are in place or guaranteed to be put in place. But I understand that until the next development comes along, that can't happen. So that is the dilemma, and I'm afraid I can't support it as it is at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments, observations, questions?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, I do beg your pardon. Yeah.
I wonder what guarantees Essex County will give that this road will be sorted out.
Well, Martin, there's a simple question.
I think we need some more clarification as to what sorting out means.
Well, be made for everyone to use. So that's pedestrians, cyclists, and we are promoting cycling, aren't we? And that road at the moment is not fit for cyclists. It's terribly busy, terribly congested, and you know, we're talking about putting another 150 odd houses on top of this 32. And so far we've had no guarantee that anything will be done to actually make that road safer.
Do you want me to come in, Chair?
Please, yes.
I think we have to keep in mind that we can only ask the developers to mitigate the impact of their
dilemma.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Barton. It's only, I say only, it is only 32 dwellings, and we have to secure mitigation to mitigate the impact of the application that's before us. I think when the bigger scheme comes forward, we will require a transport assessment to come in with it, and then that's our opportunity to look at probably more substantial infrastructure to mitigate the impact of the bigger element of the site.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments at all from anybody?
Karen Syrett has a hand raised, and Councillor Pearson.
I do beg your pardon. Karen, would you like to come in, please?
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to reassure the committee that the wider highway works are included in the emerging policy for the development of the wider site. As Martin said, we can only take into account and mitigate the development that's in front of us, so 32 dwellings. The policy is clear that new bus stop provision will be required. There is a service that runs around Maypole Green and St Michael's, and it's one that I'm very familiar with. So there is a bus service already. It may be that this development will help support that bus service. The policy also says that there will need to be contributions to or the delivery of improvements to the local road network. So we can't necessarily accept this development in isolation will deliver all those roadworks. What we can do, I think if members were minded, is send a letter from the committee or from the council to the landowner, land promoter, and indeed the developers, if it's Persimmon, to inform them that this committee will be expecting road improvements or anything required by the transport assessment when that application for the larger site comes in. Would that go some way to helping address some of those concerns?
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis, please, with that. Councillor Jarvis?
No, I was only just going to say that I agree in support with that idea. I think that's a good idea to do that, to send that letter.
Councillor
That
Barton.
together with the informative would be, I think, some reassurance to all of us.
Councillor Barton, please.
No, I didn't raise my hand again, but what I said.
Councillor Pearson has his hand raised.
I'm aware of that. Yeah, sorry. It's just following a sort of particular thread. Councillor Pearson, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to, at this stage then, Chair, propose that we follow the recommendation from the officer with the proviso that's already been proposed by Councillor Chua for the disabled bay, and also with the informative that I think fulfills our concerns about future traffic calming, and it also incorporates the comments that have just been made by Karen Serrett. I share the concerns that have been expressed by the two local ward councillors about safety of the residents or the future residents of these 32 dwellings and their foot access and exit from the development. But I also take on board the comment being made by our officers. So that's my proposal, Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please?
I'll second it.
I think Councillor Chua got in there first. Councillor Jarvis. So seconded by Councillor Chua. In that case, then, subject to those informatives, the proposal is to accept the officer's report. Richard, could you call out the school roll, please?
Yeah, my colleague Jan is going to call out the roll.
The register.
Hello there.
Please.
Okay, so Councillor Barton.
Against.
Councillor Chua.
For.
Councillor Hazel.
Against.
Councillor Jarvis.
For.
Councillor Liddy.
For.
Councillor Loveland.
For.
Councillor McLean.
For.
Councillor Oxford.
For.
And Councillor Pearson.
For.
Thank you. That's one. That's 7 for and 2 against, Chair.
Thank you very much. So the motion, subject to those informatives, is passed. Now, I have to confess to a small mistake in that I did not invite committee members to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of July.
Get rid of you. Gotta go.
So moved, Chair.
So proposed by Councillor Pearson, seconded by anybody?
Yes, I'll second them.
Councillor McLean. Does anybody disagree? No. Can we take that as unanimous, please?
Unanimous. Thank you.
Can we just have an indication of hands, Chairman, just so we can check? Everyone's happy. Yeah. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I just say something?
Please.
When you said all with the recommendations
Yes.
and the informatives, because they, I think the informatives are good just to mention to the developers, so that it may just sink in every time we offer them that that's what we're looking for a little bit, so a bit more. So with that
Are you actually talking about a more or less permanent informative, not just one that you add in each time?
No, just when you say, when you're sending, with the recommendations and all the rest of it, do you put the informatives in there as well when you do the recommendations, when you say they've got it with these recommendations and a few informatives?
And well, those informatives agreed during the meeting.
Yeah, they go to the developers?
Yes.
Oh, yes, yes, sorry, yeah, oh, yeah, sorry,
asking.
they're added to, they're appended to the planning consent.
Perfect. You obviously have a long day, Cyril.
Not as long as yours.
That's true. I'll second that.
Oh dear, right. Okay, well, I think that wraps everything up, unless I'm mistaken. Thank you very much for coming along to attend to this meeting. Thank you very much to the officers for organising it. Thank you, Martin, for giving up part of your leave, a few hours of your leave. Thank you very much. Good night, and I will see you all soon. Thank you.
Right,
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Be gone.
Jan, I think you're host again, so you should be able to stop the recording if on the top left.
Thank you. The top left.
Do you have a live on YouTube little option on the top left?
No.
All right. Do you want to just make me host quickly, and then we'll?
Sorry, Richard.
That's all right. It's because I dropped out. My internet went. Right, thank you.